What's going on, fellow engineers? This video I'm going to show you how to do a update of CiviCRM using the WordPress command line interface. Some of it will be with the command line interface, some of it won't. You will have to, it's a combination of steps that have to be done in order to complete the process. Start over. What's going on, fellow engineers? So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do an update of CiviCRM that is installed on a WordPress site. I'm also going to give you some help on how to determine when your CiviCRM installation needs to be updated, some of the messages you may see, and places where you can go and check to see if an update is available for it to be installed. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Here I have my CiviCRM pulled up in my development environment for my WordPress site. And so there are multiple ways that you can find out if an update is available for CiviCRM. The first is obviously going to the CiviCRM website and looking at the downloads page and seeing what version is available to be downloaded. The next option is to look in the news section. And so as you see here, sometimes there are some updates that are published in the news section, sometimes there are not. But the security release has been published here, and I'm currently running version 5.24.2, as you see down here in the bottom. But 5.24.3 is the latest version. So that's another indicator. Also down here at the bottom, you see that the system status is denoted as being critical, and it's highlighted in this pink color here. So if I click this link, it will take me to the CiviCRM system status page. And so this is where you can see where all the errors or any other issues that occur or problems that CiviCRM is detecting with itself. This is that page where all of that will show up. And so as you see, everything, extensions are up to date, cron is running okay. I have a few things here that are minor, but they could be addressed. The main two I want to point out is, or the main thing rather, are these two updates. So version 5.24.3 is a security update, as is denoted after the version number that specifies security. Version 5.24.4 is not a security update, and the reason you know that is because it does not state security after the version number. And if you click the version number, it will open a new window where it shows you the details of that particular update. So if you're the type that likes to read the change log for any time a new release is done, this is where you would go and do that. All right, so in addition to this link down here at the bottom that brings you to this system status page, you may get a message over here in the upper right that will say that a update is available. That shows up every so often. For me, it doesn't show up every time I come in, but if you see that, be sure to take note to that. And if you don't want to go down here to the bottom of the page, you can always go to Administration Console, and then System Status, and that will bring up this same page here. So there are a number of ways to get that particular information from within your CiviCRM installation. If you're subscribed to the CiviCRM mailing list, when they do security releases or updates, they'll also mention those in the mailing list. So that's another way of getting that particular set of information. All right, so now that we've covered how to get updated or when you will be notified of when there are updates, we can now actually go into doing the update process. So I'm going to go ahead and open my terminal. I actually have done a few things already in here, like running cron to make sure that it was ready to go. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into my WordPress directory, as you see here. And so I've attempted to use the WordPress command line interface to do the CiviCRM update, and it did not work. And so I will post, or I probably will post that video of the issue that you will get when trying to do that, just so you can see what does happen. That'll be a separate video because that obviously when you run into that issue, you can't actually do anything but roll back what you have already done. So this is the steps that I found that do work, so I will cover all of that in this one video. So the first thing you want to do is to do a backup of your CiviCRM database. And so there are a number of ways you can do this. I'm going to use MySQL dump to do this. If you're using wp-cli, you can do pretty much the same thing. As soon as I can get my credentials typed in here, and we'll do db-dump.sql. I'll obviously use a better file name than what I have used in this particular situation, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to show you what needs to be done here. And so the MySQL dump command, basically, as it implies, it dumps the database. You give it the -p to prompt for the password. You could also, if you're using this in a script, could actually directly pass the password in with this command. -u for the username, so I'm using the root user. And then next would be the database name, which is this highlighted here. And then the file that you want to output the SQL to, and so I'm putting it into a file in vartemp. If you do not put this in the output into a file, then it will display all of that output to your screen, and you really can't do anything when it displays it to the screen. All right, and so to confirm that that file did do the dump correctly, you can do ls on the vartemp directory, and here you see I have my file. And if I want to view the file, you can just do view with the file path. And as you see here, it does all of that information here. And so there are additional options available for MySQL dump. I'm not going to cover those as that's not the concept of this video, but you can do additional options that, depending on your particular situation, may be necessary. All right, so still in my WordPress directory, we have now dumped the database, so that way if we run into any issues, you can always just reload that database back in and still be able to have a functioning website. Second of all, I also want to make sure that you want to do this initial update in your testing, development, or staging environment. And the reason being is because you want to test the update that you're rolling out, and if you encounter any problems, have any adjustments that need to be made, you can make note of those before you do this same update in your production environment. Otherwise, if you do this in your production environment and something breaks, you risk having your production site down, and if your production site down, you don't have customers interacting, you lose business. If you're running an e-commerce site, a number of other things like that will happen. So again, always do it in your lower environment where there's dev, test, staging, acceptance. There are many names for lower environment, pre-prod. Then once you have completed all the testing, ensure that nothing is broken, then do the same thing in your production environment. All right, so now that we have that done, the next thing we have to do is actually go download the CiviCRM from the CiviCRM website. I wish there was a way that this could be done via the command line interface, but it's not, because the CiviCRM command line does not even accept or does not have an option to do an update, and the WordPress command line will attempt to do an update by backing up the files and the database, but the problem with that is when it backs up the files, it actually moves the files to a different directory, and that causes the PHP script to exit. So again, I will discuss more of that in a different video. All right, so now I am in my plugins directory, and so I'm going to do a wget for the CiviCRM WordPress file, and once that is done, do ls, and as you see, the file is completely downloaded. The next thing I need to do is to move the existing CiviCRM installation, and I'm just going to move it within the plugins directory to a backup directory. All right, and so now I have my CiviCRM directory backed up. And next I'm going to run wp plugin, type it correctly, install CiviCRM, and and that will be CiviCRM, the zip file, and hit enter. All right, now what's going to happen here is WordPress is going to do the install like it was installing any other plugin. You don't need to copy the CiviCRM settings file, and the reason being is because the settings file is actually existing in the uploads directory. If you do have your CiviCRM settings file somewhere else other than the uploads directory, you may have to do some copying or moving it around to make sure that that settings file does not get overwritten or corrupted in any kind of way by the plugin being installed. All right, so almost done here. Okay, now we're done. So the latest version of CiviCRM is now installed. As you see here, the plugin installed successfully and installed 101 plugins. So now if we go back to the CiviCRM system status page, and I'm gonna just go ahead and just refresh the page. All right, and so now we have a new message in addition to the existing messages. This new message says that a database upgrade is required. And so with CiviCRM, the database has a tracking of the version number, and it checks the version number in the code files versus the database. And if there's a mismatch, it assumes that there is a database upgrade that needs to be done. So you can do this via the web UI, but I like to do things via the command line interface. So I'm going to go back to the command line interface, and this time I'm going to use the CiviCRM command line interface. You can also use the WordPress CLI interface to do this. So I'm going to show you the WordPress command line interface, and that will be wp-cv and do help. And so it is going to, here we go. All right, so down here at the bottom, so once you've done the UI interface update, then you can come back and run the WP CiviCRM upgrade DB, and it's the equivalent of running this, but it's just running it from the command line instead of from the web interface. So it's kind of similar, but not exactly the same. All right, but as I mentioned, I'm gonna do this from the CiviCRM command line interface. And so to do that, that would be, and if you don't have the CiviCRM command line installed, there's two ways you can download the CiviCRM command line tool. I'll put a link to that down in the description below. The other option is to go into your plugins directory, and inside the CiviCRM folder, there is a command line somewhere in here. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, not able to find it, but there's a command line tool within the distro, if I'm not mistaken. The other alternative is just to download it, and I already have it downloaded. Like I say, I will put a link to that down in the description below so that you can download it as well. And so to run the updates from the CiviCRM command line interface, you'll do upgrade:-db and hit enter. And again, make sure you're inside of the WordPress directory when you're doing this. All right, and so it has spit out a bunch of outputs. Looks like I got some permission denied errors, and I know why that is the case. So I'm going to run this as sudo. In my particular scenario, it is because of how I have my file system structured for development. Okay, and so all looks to be good. And so if I go back to my user interface and do a refresh on the system status page again, there you go. Because I had issues with that database upgrade, looks like there's still a problem here, even though I have the latest version of the code. So let me do a database restore again. And this time I'm actually going to run that with the appropriate permissions. WP. And so now you see the importance of why you do backups before you actually start, because this was a fluke in my particular setup. Again, I have the web user accessing my home directory to do some updates, and so I wasn't expecting that particular error to occur, but it did. In most scenarios, when you're doing a hosting environment setup, you're usually logging in as the user that runs the website. So on Linux Ubuntu, it would be www-data. In my case, because I have a pointer to the web root to my home directory, is not. All right, so now that I've done the database rollback, if I do a refresh, it may still complain. Yeah, all right, so database upgrade still required. All right, so what I'm going to do now is use sudo to run the CiviCRM database upgrade. So I'm going to sudo cv upgrade db and hit enter. So now that has completed. Now if I refresh the system status page, the two messages about the database upgrade and the security patch should go away. All right, and so now they have. And so I'm thinking what happens is, as part of this DB upgrade command being executed, it is writing some kind of files somewhere, whether they're temporary files or clearing up temporary files, whatever the case may be. So that's why it failed the first time. And so, again, be sure you back up your database before you start. As you see, I had to actually use that database to rerun the process. So you never know when the unexpected may happen. All right, last but not least, once you have successfully done the upgrade, go ahead and commit your code to version control. So I'm going to do that by adding the CiviCRM. What's happening? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and commit my code to the my website repository by adding the CiviCRM folder to the repo, and then commit updated to CiviCRM 5.24.4. All right, so that part is done. And then the next part is to remove the files that you took for the backup. So I'm going to remove the zip file, which is gone, and then bar temp db dump. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And if I do an ls for that, should say no file exists. So we're good there. So that is it for the how to upgrade your CiviCRM and WordPress. I wish it was a little bit easier. Ideally, I would like to be able to run one command from either the CiviCRM command line interface or from the WordPress command line interface, and it'd be able to do everything. But as it currently stands right now, that is not the case. There are, I guess because there's still some updates or code features that need to still be put in place to be able to make that possible to happen. Oh, I also forgot to remove my CiviCRM backup folder from the previous version, so I'll go ahead and do that afterwards. But if you have any questions about upgrading or updating your CiviCRM version, you can let me know via the comments below. If you have any issues with yours, also let me know in the comments below. I'll be glad to help you as best as I can. Again, this is the command line interface is one way of doing it. You can do some of this stuff from the user interface, but I prefer to do the command line interface. So maybe in the future I'll make an update of how to do the other items via the command line. Via the user interface. For those of you that are not fans of the command line interface. So please be also sure to check me out on Instagram and Twitter at almostcngr. If this video has helped you, give it a thumbs up. That lets me know that you're interested in more content like this, and it also lets other subscribers know that are interested in CiviCRM that, hey, he's got a video that may be of use to me. So until next time, peace out.